And now, Warming Center Wednesdays with the Flathead Warming Center and KGEZ's John Hendricks, where we tackle hard conversations around the complex causes of homelessness and discuss how we as a community can collaborate to address them.
Joining me today from the Warming Center is John Rausch. Good afternoon, John.
How you doing, John?
Good, good. So one of the things that you do at the Warming Center, besides providing a safe and warm place to sleep, you're also trying to help people with mental disorders. You're trying to help people get back on a path where they can have their own home and have a life again.
Yeah, one of our biggest goals is to help them improve the quality of their life.
Yeah, and they got to do that in order to get out of the situation they're in.
A lot of times they have to at least manage their conditions in order to be functional in life.
So today we want to talk about PTSD, and we've been hearing this term floated around when it comes to our veterans. But what is PTSD?
It's referred to as post-traumatic stress disorder, and it is a condition that develops in people who have experienced a shocking, scary, or dangerous event.
What would that be?
It could be something like combat. A lot of veterans combat with PTSD-like symptoms. Could be suffering abuse, either physical or sexual abuse. It could be being involved in an accident. It could be witnessing abusive situations. It could be a variety of things.
Well, these aren't necessarily physical impairments.
No, these aren't physical impairments. This is a reaction condition that develops in relation to experiencing a traumatic event.
So we can be perfectly healthy otherwise, but be dealing with PTSD?
People who are managing their illness and getting treatment can be healthy and can be functioning in their life, but people who are usually not treated and experiencing PTSD have a very hard time functioning in life.
So let's talk about what are some of the symptoms of PTSD?
There's a lot of different symptoms of There's different symptoms of PTSD. There's 4 different types. There's what are called the Reexperiencing symptoms, and that's like flashbacks,
Nightmares.
Reliving the event over and over in your thinking, nightmares, that type of thing. Those can be very impairing and very, very scary. There's the avoidance symptoms, which is putting yourself in a position where you're avoiding those types of situations, where you're avoiding those triggers, where you're avoiding stimuli that might remind you of the event. There's arousal, reactive symptoms. Basically, arousal, reactive symptoms would be like becoming angry. That would be an arousal symptom.
Would we be able to recognize somebody with PTSD just looking at them?
Not usually. We'd be able to see that there's something certainly that they're suffering from and something that's affecting their lives, but it's not something you can recognize by just observing somebody, usually.
Well, and feeling stressed and frightened when danger isn't even present, my gosh, that could be debilitating.
Yes. Yeah, they go into situations, they have a very, situations that may be non-threatening to them, and which we may view as being very safe situations. A person with PTSD may not be able to determine that this is a safe situation, and they may be frightened and scared and stressed in situations that aren't even threatening to them.
Could they be dangerous to themselves and to others?
Yeah, they could at some point, but with any condition, any mental health condition, certainly they probably experience some depressive symptoms that go along with that, some anxiety symptoms. Certainly, they could, I don't know all the correlations myself, but certainly there could be some danger. There could be some danger to self, more so.
Reacting back, fighting back if they were scared.
I haven't done a whole lot of research into that,
right.
but
Well, what do you mean by symptom interference, though?
symptom interference is simply like when you're trying to function in life. If have been traumatized and affected by trauma in a very significant way, and it's gets in the way, you're unable to function in other areas of your life, like holding a job or concentrating or, daily activities of daily living, relationships. The trauma that has happened to you is debilitating in that you're not able to, that person is not able to function in other avenues of life.
Well, how about substance abuse? Does that get involved in this?
It's another one of those co-occurring situations that we've talked about. A lot of people who have, in my career as a substance abuse counselor, we've had to, it's interesting because as an addictions counselor, I've had to learn a whole lot about mental health as well, even though my specialty is addictions. Because of co-occurring, the two fields really go together. And with substance use is a lot of times used in these co-occurring disorders as a way to relieve feelings associated with the mental health disorder. So like maybe anxiety or depression or anger or feelings associated with the trauma and those mood symptoms. Person with a co-occurring disorder and has an addiction to a substance use disorder also uses substances as a means of kind of relieving those symptoms, or at least masking those symptoms. It doesn't cure those symptoms, but it can
mask them, maybe
mask them and alleviate them for a temporary amount of time.
Well, I'd like to understand what PTSD and homelessness and how the two work together and how that seems together for you at the Warming Center. We'll do that right after this.
Let's have a shout out for Paper Chase, your one-stop shop for all your printing needs in Kalispell. Whether it's a custom designed t-shirt, ball cap, or hoodie, Paper Chase has what you need. Pronto, business cards, construction plans, banners of almost any size, and yard signs too. Paper Chase excels in engraving wood, leather, cups, trophies, plaques, and custom gifts. What you want to promote, Paper Chase makes it happen. Just call 406-752-4944 or visit Paper Chase, located on the corner of Main Street and East Oregon Street in Kalispell.
John Rausch is my guest. We're talking about PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, or disorder.
Yep.
And, okay, so I think we understand what it is. How does it present itself, say, in the homeless community?
We deal with a lot of people who end up homeless and in bad situations in life, have come from bad situations. It's just a cycle. And a lot of people that we see come into our shelter have a significant history of trauma, whether that be, you witnessing, being the victim of sexual abuse, physical abuse, child abuse in some circumstances, witnessing violence, those types of things. A lot of people have come from some pretty rough backgrounds and experiences in their life, and they come in with, dealing with a lot of trauma. And in doing our roadmaps, some of this comes out in some of the conversations we have, that they, are dealing, with significant events that have occurred in their lives, and whether or not this is getting in the way of their ability to function and contributes to their homelessness is, that's not something I can assess. But what we try to do is, in that spirit of getting them the help they need to improve their lives, and for somebody with PTSD or other mental illnesses or substance use disorders, that's treatment. So part of the roadmaps and part of what we do at the Warming Center is we have our community resources, and I think I've gone through some of those before, like Western Montana Mental Health Center, PATH and PACT, Greater Valley Health Center. They have behavioral health as well. Manny Rivers Whole Health, who I used to work for. We are able to refer and kind of connect. We call it link, because these resources will come in the center and work with us on helping get to know the individual and provide an outreach on their part and get them into treatment services. So we're able to work with people and develop rapport and getting them to a place where they're willing to get treatment from the appropriate resource. And at that point, we have the relationship with the resource, and they may already have the relationship with the resource also, because they may have talked to them a few times. So it's kind of nice to have those agencies there.
Yeah. So you're in a position here to assess the situation and talk with them and try to figure out a way to get them out of the situation they're in and back into being homed again.
Yeah, it's not a very, it's a longer process. I mean, it's a lot of them have a lot of treatment is a long process, and what we do is we do more of a kind of, I guess you wouldn't call it an assessment, because that's more of a formal interview done by a mental health professional or but what we do is some screening as part of our roadmaps, asking them just some questions, and if they identify that they think they have some mental health issues, and it might relate back to when they were abused as a child, then we know that they may benefit from getting to know somebody from one of the mental health agencies, and then they take over from there, and they work to get them into the treatment they need.
I just went to what you said stopped me right there. When somebody was abused as a child, so there's no time limit on PTSD.
No, there's not a time limit there's no time limit. I'm not a, it can.
But I'm thinking if somebody's abused when they're 5 or 6 years old and now they're 40 years old.
Yeah.
It's been with them that long.
Yeah, people can have long-standing trauma.
Yeah.
I know I know the threshold for what is a current disorder versus a past disorder is different. I know that from addictions, and as far as that part of the situation, knowing exactly what the threshold is for a PTSD or the threshold is for a mental health condition, that's not really my area of expertise. I do know a lot about the conditions. And
well, I guess my point here, John, is that somebody could be abused when they're 5 or 6 years old, and they've covered it up, they've masked it, they've done whatever they have to do until they get to a point in their lives where they just can't do that anymore. They're tired. They're exhausted from fighting their problem. And then that's when the spiral begins.
It could go that direction.
Yeah.
It could start way before that. The threshold usually for a current disorder is experiencing symptoms within the last, at least I know within a substance use disorder, is experiencing those symptoms within the last year. So you could have had a traumatic event happen years ago, but you could be experiencing symptoms within the current year. As far as some people may, it depends. It's different. It's not predictable the way any of these conditions manifest themselves.
Is PTSD a life sentence?
There is treatment for it. I don't think it's a life sentence, no. There's always hope. It can be managed through psychotherapy, through medication management, through working with a mental health professional, a psychiatric provider, LCSW, which is licensed clinical social worker, which is a form of therapist. There's lots of help available and support. So it's not a life sentence, not at all.
So once we get somebody to the warming center, then you have an opportunity to get them the assessment and perhaps some help and maybe a path out.
I have the opportunity to have a conversation with them and kind of figure out what's going on in their life, and then I can link with the appropriate professionals for a further assessment and the right form of treatment. So yeah.
That's probably the only way out.
Yeah, but for somebody with a mental health condition, serious mental health condition, or a substance use disorder, and a lot of times treatment's the only way to a better life.
John, as always, we appreciate the great work you're doing at the Warming Center, and continued good health.
All right. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for another Warming Center Wednesday. Did you miss it, or would you like to share it with friends? Find today's and past shows via flatheadwarmingcenter.org. It's